All right. Okay. Welcome, branding students, or as I call you, brand managers these days when I send you emails, because hopefully some of you will be leaving here and becoming a brand manager in your career. I know there are definitely those of you that are interested in doing that after you leave Westchester. So I want to introduce our last special speaker of the semester. We saved one of the best for last. This is Phillip Oakley, a personal friend of mine, as well as a very impressive marketer who I followed on LinkedIn for a long time before he and I connected and became friends. He is a lifelong learner like me. We definitely share a lot of the different seminars and stuff like that to become better marketers, lifelong learners, something he's going to probably touch on in this little session here. We're also big believers of the international marketing community. The United States is a little bit behind. And so we pull from the world the best practices around marketing theory and practice. So without any further ado, I'm going to shut up and say, Phil, take it away, my brother.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Well, let's see if we can get through this without any technology failures. Good. Can we see everything?
You can
Yeah?
see it's beautiful. Yep.
Sweet. Okay. So when Tom reached out, he asked me to talk about marketing success in the age of AI. And so I thought about it for several weeks and then actually talked with some of our friends, as Tom mentioned, in the international community. And really realize that all this fear and conversation we have going on around AI is, well, it's just another chapter. Because as you can see, TikTok, metaverse, internet, AI, like we've had new scary things come along every, I don't know, 3 to 4 years. Now it's going to compound because of the speed of technology, but it's nothing new. So to get into a little bit more, I want to tell you about a story about when I used to sell pot. Sorry, I meant pots. I was trying to get your
Ah,
attention. Garden center,
we call
actually.
that cannabis, Philip. We call that cannabis these days.
So in my early 20s, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to go back to university for, I actually just started working. Now, this is, I'm going to show my age, before the internet was easily accessible for everyone. And I actually didn't know what the inside of a marketing or ad agency looked like. I'd been through some creative stuff in high school and college, but it was mostly around art and design. And I was working in a garden center. Actually, I was managing the garden center in Greensboro, North Carolina. The business itself, just the garden center, is worth about 10 million a year in a $37 million store. And so one busy Saturday, I'm standing out front, and I don't know if you guys have been to a Home Depot or Lowe's, but often in a small store, they have to expand their garden center by blocking off some of the parking places out front of the store. It's just seasonal expansion, right? And one day a lady walked up to me and she said, "Well, you guys aren't as busy as I thought you were." And that was interesting to me. And I said, "Well, yeah, it's kind of a slow Saturday. What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, there's cars parked all the way to the street. So I thought you were busier." And that's when the alarm bells started going off because I had a customer telling me that we looked busier than we were. Now, what you guys don't know is there was a Home Depot right down the street and actually a little harder to access than our store. I knew because I shopped my competitor that if someone were to drive by my store and think that we were really busy and didn't want to get clogged up in a busy Lowe's on a Saturday, it was really just more simple for them to go to a much slower, smaller Home Depot. I was losing business because of perception. So we rearranged the garden center. This is actually one of the stores. You can see that fence in the background. We redesigned the way the garden center was set up to take over more of overflow that used to let cars and stuff go around the store to get back those 40 parking places. That change meant a 30% increase in sales, and we cut our shrink in half in one season. Now, that didn't come from promotions. That didn't come from advertising. That didn't come from Lowe's being better than Home Depot. It was simply listening to a customer and understanding their perception and how we could change that perception to change their behavior. And well, it meant a promotion. Now, a little bit later, For me, I didn't want to work Lowe's forever. I just happened to see a movie called What Women Want. I don't expect anyone except for maybe Tom to have seen this movie before. So I'm going to tell you a really, really quick version of it. Mel Gibson is an ad executive. He has a teenage daughter, tells him he doesn't know shit about women, and he really needs to, if he wants to date a woman seriously, he needs to try and understand them. So just like in marketing and advertising, we'll go and eat our competitors' ice creams or cereals, or try out their products, or try our customers' products outright. Well, he got a bunch of things at the supermarket, brought them home, and tried to figure out what it was like to be a woman. And then he fell in a bathtub and had an accident and suddenly developed the ability to read women's thoughts. Now he's a chauvinistic pig. So he did some weird, early 2000s rom-com crap. But the big takeaway was if you actually could listen to what the other person needed and build empathy for them, you could actually serve them better. And that was my first look into an advertising agency, not just because he was a creative director, but also because um, he developed that, and there was a winning Nike campaign that came out of that in the movie. It was kind of neat. So ultimately, I want you to understand that technology is changing. Listening and paying attention to people and figuring out how to communicate value to them, that's your real opportunity in marketing, and something you can do beyond the tools that you and your peers have access to. So don't get stuck in flashy, shiny things. Don't get stuck in hacks. Don't get stuck shoveling horse shit. And we're going to talk about all of that today. So the age of AI. First, let's address AI. There's a lot of people who hate AI. There's a lot of people who are just sinking everything in their business or their practices around AI. Microsoft has laid off 30% of their employees and increased revenue by $50 billion because they're focused on offshoring junior roles and using AI for mid-level roles. That's kind of scary, right? Now, honestly, technologists are eating their own right now. So let's be aware of that and what that could happen to us. But we have to find our value and make sure we understand that we don't end up replaced, because AI is not a replacement for humans and tools. Not everyone feels that way. So it's really important for you to show your value and keep growing constantly, as Tom said earlier. So often we think about AI as generated images or chat GPT. Does anyone use AI, and outside of like generating fun images or chat GPT, does anyone use something interesting? If you do, will you drop it in the comments? Tom, I know you have a few fun things that you like to share.
Well, let's see. Yeah, definitely. I know my students use AI and they're very comfortable with it.
Yeah, good. Okay. So I'll tell you what's happening in the professional setting. This is it. I mean, how many times have you opened yet another app on your phone and there's an AI icon beside the old logo, right? Or you've logged into a website and they've tried to get you to agree to use the AI or let them train their AI on your information. It's coming, right? So I've worked with a lot of technologists around the world, actually on 6 different continents, mostly because I can't sell technologists in Antarctica. But I first heard about MLM in 2017. A data scientist said something really important over dinner. She said, AI will be riddled with the biases of its programmers. And that's always stuck with me, right? That's not just early on when she was referring to it, that literally the people programming AI would put some biases into it unthinkingly. But when we prompt, when we ask AI, whatever AI has been trained on, it's developing biases based on the information that it's fed, right? Have you guys ever heard the phrase, people don't do what they say or say what they mean? Yeah, hands, yeah. It happens all the bloody time, right? So I mean, same thing. Like, go back to the biases. If AI is scraping information off the internet that someone wrote because they were writing SEO clickbait so they could get your attention and sell more ads on their website, right? Maybe that's not the end all be all for the information you need for making decisions in the boardroom, right? So just remember, AI is being trained on loads of data sources around the internet. Whatever you feed it could have biases, empty promises, and contradictions. If you're not doing this, second check every single thing you're getting from AI. It's really important. But I'm going to go back a few more years and talk about the Gartner hype cycle for emerging technologies. If you haven't seen this, this gets updated a lot. But it's really neat to look at some of the things on here back in 2016. Augmented reality and virtual reality. Notice the slope of enlightenment. They actually thought that it was on its way of being accepted by larger groups of people. Now, notice the color. They still thought it was 5 to 10 years out. Has virtual reality impacted the way you guys do any of your work or your studying or anything like that? No, Apple had a bomb, right? I mean, Oculus is cool. Like I got my kid an Oculus 3 for Christmas. I'm sure I won't see him for 2 months. But when we were talking about augmented reality back in 2014 to 2016, we thought it was going to change everything. And if you didn't have a VR plan, you're in big trouble. So just remember that although because we are enveloped in AI and we're using it every day, it doesn't mean everyone is, right? Like there's a lot of people out there, your average Joe, your average small business owner, or your school teachers, like they're not using that stuff the way we are to develop our plans, get deeper in our careers. Obviously not the way Microsoft is doing it. Anyway, I just want to warn you that someone's always coming for your job. Don't be scared and just learn to use and harness what you have because there's always another chapter coming. Speaking of chapters, let's talk about a few of those chapters throughout history. If someone tells you blank is dead, they're selling you a competitor. I cannot tell you how many times I sat in a boardroom or in a meeting room with a client and had some other person from another agency or someone within their company say something like, well, TV's dead. Like you got to do everything on Meta now. Or why would you put out of home posters out? Like that stuff's dead. Like you should be, investing in HubSpot. Okay, well, you're trying to sell HubSpot or you're trying to get someone to sponsor HubSpot for you. The bottom line is where our customers are. That's where our messaging needs to be, right? We need to be neutral on what we want to push and sell, unless we're just going to end up being that hammer that is looking for nails to pound. So let's go beyond that and talk about how to start a marketing career in the age of AI. That's the 2024 version. Anybody remember the 2020 version? All right, you guys were in high school then, or maybe starting college, right? How to start a marketing career in the age of global pandemic. It goes back a lot further than that. How to start a marketing career in the age of virtual reality. It's 2014 is when that started. How about how to start a marketing career in the age of social media? 2010. Wow, now I am getting old, Tom. How to start a marketing career in the age of streaming video? 2007. I can't tell you how many people said TV is dead, cable's dead. Well, cable has obviously reduced a lot now. They're just changed who they are. They've adapted, right? How to start a marketing career in the age of digital marketing. It's 2000. Traditional marketing's dead. How to start a career in the age of no more commercials. TiVo. Now, you guys might not know what TiVo is, but it was the first DVR. It was the first time we had control over commercials, whether we wanted to look at commercials or not. We could pre-record it digitally and watch it later and scrub through the commercials. By the way, TiVo, once they realized they couldn't make any money and everyone was developing their own DVR technology, they tried to actually sell advertising on their program. Funny how cyclical this thing is, huh? How to start a marketing career in the age of the internet, 1997. Who visits a bookstore? That's the launch of Amazon. How to start a marketing career in the age of computers. Anyone can be a designer. You don't have to have hand drawing skills now. You can download Illustrator. I know there's lots of other tools now. I'm just talking about the 1990s. How to start a marketing career in the age of television. Whoa, the first 30-second commercial came out in 1960. Wasn't that hip? In 1941, the very first TV ad aired just before Brooklyn Dodgers game. Anyone want to guess who they were playing? They were playing the Phillies.
Yeah.
So a simple 10-second ad for Belova came on with, it was just literally just a still photo. It was kind of shaking because, they had a camera on it. But then they actually had a voiceover come over and say, America runs on Belova time. People went nuts because guess what people started asking for? Asking for Belova watches, wherever Belova watches were sold, right? And that gave birth to TV. I'm going to keep going backwards a little bit more to the second industrial revolution, if you guys paid attention to a history class in high school and college, also known as the technological revolution. Between like 1970 and 1920, there was a phase of rapid scientific discovery. Honestly, what it comes down to is standardization, modernization. Your first manufacturing facilities, Coca-Cola, 1899. The first Ford rolled off the line in 1903. That had a bigger impact on commerce and selling business than AI does. Sorry, I'll argue about that all day long. Can you imagine if we didn't have these type of manufacturing facilities? So now that we've gone through all this change over 100 years, what's been consistent? Can anyone guess? You can drop it in the chat. What's been consistent for the last 120 years or so in regards to marketing? All right, I'm going to skip ahead. Everyone's still asleep, or I've annoyed them, maybe both. So the marketing basics, right? The things you guys are learning in Tom's classes. Like I promise you, there are lots and lots of digital marketing bros out there with all kinds of hacks telling you to ignore going to school, telling you to ignore reading books, only to discover later that they're just trying to sell you their program. Like take their program, learn the shortcuts, learn how to do prompts. By all means, goodness gracious, do it. Get on TikTok. But I promise you, with the basics in your back pocket, you will be more successful. You'll see more opportunities, and you'll honestly be more valuable to the company. So people's brains also haven't evolved a lot in, I don't know, 10, 20, 30,000 years. Now, the scary thing is people's brains are actually getting smaller. Can you guys believe that? The more screens we look at, the less time we make to think, the more calorie starved we are for dopamine, the smaller our brain's getting. So if our brain hasn't changed in 10,000 years, like what's happening? It's obviously it's the screens, right? But also human behavior. Now, human behavior has obviously changed. The iPhone was probably the biggest shift in human behavior in a long time because you used to be able to ignore a lot of things until that phone was in your pocket. And I have, oh, I don't know, 400, 500,000 notifications I've now ignored on my phone. I'm not kidding. I'll show you my email later. But the drive for survival, fear, and procreation, when to eat, like that stuff hasn't changed, right? There's habits around those things that we can study as marketers, around parents, those kinds of things that really help us steer and understand human behavior to make marketing and brand decisions and help our companies win. So, I mean, honestly, just look at the meeting space today. We're meeting on Zoom. I would have loved to have gotten on a plane to come up and see you in a physical class. That may have happened 10 years ago. But that's just not happening now because we've changed behavior thanks to technology. So you notice this book, I think Tom may have recommended it to you, from Rory Sutherland. If you're on TikTok, Rory Sutherland has blown up on TikTok. He's just taken his own material and put it on TikTok and exploded because he has such a way of explaining human behavior and he's so engaging and so passionate about it. But obviously he's on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. But go give him a follow. His class, if you want to push yourself later, his Mad Masters class is relatively affordable compared to some of the other continuing ed classes. Pretty good. But I think it's really important to go where humans make decisions. This is where you have value that AI doesn't. AI cannot go sit in a busy mom's kitchen at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, observing her rituals and habits that she doesn't even realize she's doing while she's making breakfast and smacking her husband in the back of the head to get off the sports page and nudging the kids to get ready for school. That's where our opportunity is, where humans are, where humans make decisions. Because we all get to go scrape data the same way. We all get access to the same AI tools if we want to. What's going to make a difference for you, right? So what do we do in the face of AI? I actually asked some of our international marketing friends, and I want to share some of those things with you. Mark Hadfield, have fun, learn, be fulfilled. I'm actually going to read some other things he said. I didn't want to put it all on the screen, of course. I think we're obsessed with getting things right or giving the correct answer. That's part of the reason I think the industry is infatuated with data. It mitigates risk and allows people to claim they listened to the evidence that was robust or statistically representative. It's driven by fear of not wanting to lose our jobs. I'm sure someone much smarter than me could plot a straight line between work that is correct because the data told me to and average work. Note that Mark's firm focuses on ethnographic research. He's literally the guy who sits in people's kitchens with a video camera and asks them questions and eats cereal with them. He sees the things that AI cannot go scrape until it's uploaded to AI and someone trains it on what he's learned, right? Graham Fraser. The key is that they get educated in fundamentals. Gen AI resorts to the mean. You have to have a good BS detector. Also, stay away from LinkedIn. Now, that's his that's his sense of humor. I had to leave it in there. He would be upset if I didn't put that in there. I do think there's some really smart people on LinkedIn, like Tom and me. But there's lots of people to go learn from, right? But do be careful of anyone slinging bullshit or horseshit, if we'll stay on theme. Anyway, take a step back, understand how you want to start your career in marketing. Just to realize that AI is a tool was part of his message. Alistair, AI is a great way of being average at scale. Now, this is important. Alistair's not a marketer. If you read what he writes on LinkedIn, which you should go subscribe to his newsletter, you'd think he's a marketer. He's actually a CFO. He's the guy you really want to have a good rapport with in the boardroom or when you're trying to get budget for something, right? So when you have a CFO who really understands long-term brand building, investment in brand, it's really important. But this guy is also telling you, beware of being average. Average gets you fired. Alistair prompted me to ask you, how many of you want to start a career where at best you'll only be average? Doesn't sound fun, does it? Doesn't. Now, vanilla can hide in a business for a long time. Everyone walks by the Camry. No offense to Toyota Camry owners, right? Not flashy. It's average. It kind of hides. AI is coming for that. AI is coming for average. AI is coming to get rid of those people who don't bring extra value. And that's what Alistair's warning about. One of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, Kirti, shadow your boss. Observe how they deal with others, how they present, and how they brief. Ask what you would do differently. And yes, please read a textbook or two. No one died due to excessive reading. Nice. Nice, Tom. Yeah, he's a smart cookie. So Kirti's warning to do shadow your boss. Get in the office. I know it's not fun. We've all got remote, but I promise you, if you will get in the office and be around your boss without sucking up, you will learn so many things through connective tissue that AI cannot scrape because it's about learning humans, right? Learning how the business flows. She also shares, observe how they deal with others, how they present, how they brief. Ask yourself what you would do differently. How would you have written that deck that they're now writing? Lee, the issues that many thousands of people have until recently had a very well-paid marketing career whilst being entirely average. The vast majority of work is average. This, again, there's a theme. You guys are picking up on this, right? AI will help you plow through data points, but it can't overhear the coffee shop chatter or feel the way you do about that piece of music or that play you just saw. Susie Barnes, if you're not familiar with Diva Agency, actually focus on video games. I don't know if you guys if you saw the Diablo launch in New York about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that was her. They actually just had, I can't remember the game, but they just had something on the Sphere in LA too, and in Vegas as well. They do a lot of cool stuff globally. If anyone's into video games, go check them out. So Susie goes on to say, I would say get out and observe, spend more time in the world, more time with people. People are more complex and contradictory than AI may have you believe. You need to develop your own critical thinking to be able to evaluate what AI serves up. So learn about the world with your own eyes, observe it, engage with it, enjoy it, draw inspiration from real life and the spaces between that AI can't get to. And that's where the real insights are found. That's where the new ideas come from. Remember, AI is trained on ideas that are already out there. So if you guys are picking up a theme on some of this stuff, I'm bringing it back around to you. I didn't say this. Tom didn't say this. Some really smart people who own agencies around the world and have work that you've probably seen around the world are saying the same thing. Study the basics. Make people your focus and don't settle for average. Now, notice I'm not poo-pooing AI. I'm telling you, you better be bigger than AI. You better be able to push yourself further than AI. But there's some things that AI is bringing to us that we haven't had before, which is kind of cool. Does everyone know who Mark Ritson is? Tom, I can't hear you, but I think you said they'd better.
There's a lot of Mark Ritson in my D2L and in my slides when I teach.
Yeah, sweet. Okay. Has anyone seen Evidenza? Does that sound familiar to anyone? Tom, have you seen evidence? Do you know what this is? Okay, so if anyone's frequented LinkedIn for the last 5 or 6 years, there's two names you may know on the business side of things, John Lombardo and Peter Weinberg. Okay, they ran the B2B Institute at LinkedIn. One day, and you can find this article, or you know what, I'll make sure Tom has it. He'll share it with you from Mark. One day they called their buddy Mark and said, hey, we got something we want to show you. And went and sat down and they said, we want to leave LinkedIn to do a startup. And he said, you're stupid. You have the cushiest gig. All you do is write and talk to other people and you know, LinkedIn pays you quite well. Why in the hell would you do that? And then they showed them their startup, which is Evidenza. This is something we've been missing. Remember when I was telling you Mark can go sit in a mom's kitchen and actually pay attention to, you know, the habits she's making, the rituals she has. If a kid touches their ear or, you know, if they wear their shoes in the house, like all those things to pay attention to. You cannot get that in a boardroom. You will not offer a CEO or a busy C-level executive a $100 Amazon card and ask if you can go tail them in a very important business meeting. It ain't happening. So we've been missing some information. That's exactly what these guys have put together at Evidenza. So they've actually trained it on tons of data, built synthetic personas so the marketers can go in and start asking the AI questions. Now, mind you, this is qual, right? You have to go back it up with quant after that. You have to actually go push and not just take what the AI says. But this is brand new. By the way, Ritson said, oh, you guys, yeah, you got to leave LinkedIn. Go do it. By the way, I'll invest. So when he's pushing this, he's also an investor. Let's be honest here, right? Sorry, Mark. So I want to tell you a couple stories, a couple case studies, and I'm not showing the work on purpose because as we all know, building a brand and the 4 Ps of marketing are a lot more than just promotion, right? I'm going to stay back on the theme of paying attention to people. Does everyone have a bath fan in their house? Probably, right? I hate it when I go to a hotel and they don't have fans. That's awful, right? So years ago, an agency I worked at, Home Depot actually was the client, pulled us in, and they had spent a lot of time, effort, and money developing these really nice high-end bath fans. And they had brought in and given some really nice, important, valuable shelf space to Braun for bath fans. And they had, you know, they could move more air, they removed more poo stink, they were quieter, and no one bought them. They were still buying the cheap ones. And they couldn't figure out why. So they hired the agency. And guess what the agency did? Well, we talked to people. And what's funny is I can't see everyone's faces, obviously, but there's a big theme every time I talk about this story. The women know why people are buying the loud ones. First person who wants to jump in and say why customers were buying the loud ones. Or you could put in the, if you're shy, you could put it in the comments. That's right. Women especially didn't want their embarrassing bathroom noises to be heard outside the bathroom. So they actually preferred the louder ones. They actually saw a male contractor on the Home Depot aisle in front of bath fans trying to talk a woman into buying a nice expensive one that was quiet. This moves so much air. It's going to be so much better. And she was like, nope, I don't want anyone to hear me pass wind. That's why I'm buying the loud one. So the marketing agency goes back to Home Depot and says, now we know how to sell expensive bath fans. We're going to put Bluetooth in it so they can actually connect music or white noise. So they can hide the poo noise. They can move more air, then get rid of the stink. And you can sell more product. Do you know what Home Depot did? They said, hey, Braun, you're losing those expensive shelf spaces because we're making our own and we're going to put our own product on the shelf. They actually, Braun had to beg and lose margin to stay on the shelf at Home Depot because Home Depot had someone talk to customers, not the retailer, not the brand. Wow. And it really just came down to talking to people. I don't, now AI might be able to scrape that now, but back then they wouldn't have known that. AI, the information wasn't readily available. So Airsony was a client based in Australia. If anyone has asthma or grew up with the threat of asthma, I can't remember the stat now, it's been years. But most of the people, here either had it or knew someone who had it. But the device was made for managing asthma. You could actually hold it up. That black disc was a sensor you'd hold up to your neck, hold it against your skin, and just breathe for 30 seconds, and it would Bluetooth that information to your phone. It could actually predict an asthma attack, like hours ahead. I won't get into the technology of it, but that's really important information, especially for a scared mom who's taking their kid to the playground on a spring day. So the people who started this company, the clinicians who were behind the research, the investors that were behind, getting the prototype off the ground, they went to investors and said, we're going to change the world. We're going to rid the world of fear of asthma. By the way, this is actually going to save a lot of money for insurance, because 2 out of every 3 emergency trips to the hospital for asthma, they really just needed to calm down or take their inhaler. They weren't actually in any danger. All that information would be available on the phone. We'll change the world. And they didn't get a single investor beyond the initial 2 people who put money behind it. But they couldn't believe it. And so they were already working with us to talk about branding and prepping the market, doing some research, even form factor. They hired someone to design a really beautiful thing that looked like the Apple mouse, but doesn't work for a busy mom throwing this thing in their purse. So we helped redesign it. The reason they couldn't get investors is because they were talking about clinical data. They were showing charts. They were showing information that the investors didn't understand. They were basically talking to doctors, not investors. The agency, we sniffed that out. We sniffed out the disconnection with the people. And we said, tell you what, why don't you let us take a little time to make a 2 or 3 minute animated video? Because at the time we didn't have the form factor for the device. So we just had sketches. You couldn't let them hold it. They couldn't hold it outside of a clinical setting to show how it worked. Why don't you let us create a short animated video to actually show the impact it'll make to the world, tell a human story, show these people how they get to be a hero if they invest in this. Our video, by the way, after client feedback, and they shoehorned as much information in as possible, ended up being 3 minutes and 14 seconds instead of 2 minutes. That's a reality you'll deal with too. But they put that video in front of an investor who had walked away once already. And the guy's name was Bruce Matheson, made all of his money on hotels and casinos and liquor. And he was trying to get into the med health or med tech space to leave a legacy beyond shenanigans, frankly. I get a phone call on the day my second son was born when they were presenting that video to Bruce Matheson. And they said he clapped at the end of the video. He committed $1 million and opened up his book to his buddies on the spot. And that video raised $24 million in 60 days. So we got to do the rest of our work. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because it was not understanding not only the investors and why they should give a shit about what they were trying to sell them, but they weren't telling the human story about why this was going to make a difference in a consumer's life. They knew it, but they didn't take the time to get into that story and tell the data in a way that, well, they could believe in it. And that's the biggest takeaway from that entire case study. Now, I don't expect anyone to remember this guy. I actually forgot what he looked like. And I've told this story a few times. I think, how many people here were around in 1983 besides Tom and I? Anybody? Anybody? No. Is anyone worried about war with Russia anytime soon? Yeah. I'm sharing this with you because that stuff's been there for a long time, okay? So it's okay to just calm down a little bit, right? So what you don't know is on September 26, 1983, we were almost all obliterated. Tom and I wouldn't have been here, much less you guys. Because this guy, I have to read his name, sorry, Stanislav Petrov, was basically, he was reviewing and manning the early warning system for nuclear, basically nuclear attacks in Russia. And their system, named OCO, started giving alerts that there were nuclear warheads aimed at Russia in the air from the United States, and the United States, there are other like locations outside of the continent. He literally had a timer saying, this is coming. The data was saying, you're going to die in 2 minutes. His job was just to push a button and tell the generals. And what do you think the generals would have done had he told them, we're going to be hit with 60 nuclear warheads in a minute and a half? What do you think would happen?
Kiss your butt goodbye.
Retaliation. So Stanislav took a step back and he said, this doesn't feel right. Why would they do this? Everybody in the world was talking about this at this time. As a matter of fact, if you guys are want to go back and listen to early 80s music, there's a song called Land of Confusion, and it'll scare the hell out of you if you actually think about the lyrics. It was all about, us being afraid of getting nuked off the map. He didn't tell them. His human intuition, his paying attention to all the data outside of what the computer system was telling him in his face, told him something else was going on. And it was just a glitch. It was just bad data in the machine being fed to a human, and the human didn't just take it and be average. That man saved the whole bleeping planet, frankly, just from taking a moment to think beyond what the system was telling him. Big story. Sorry, it's not marketing. I think it's really important, though. So where are your opportunities to be above average, enjoy your career? I'm going to share some advice. You've probably heard some of this from Tom already, but I think it's really important. Learn to speak business. The right lingo provides the bingo. So if you guys have listened to Alistair, I promise you that guy's going to teach you how to be successful in the boardroom. You got to go to subscribe to his newsletter. My friend Lisa McDonald, who Tom also knows, she scoffs at things like brand, purpose, good vibes, fortune cookie wisdom from LinkedIn. And it's because marketers don't take their own medicine. And then marketers turn around and complain about not being taken seriously in the boardroom. Her advice is, if you want a seat at the table and the budget to get stuff done, you have to learn to speak like the rest of the C-suite in business terms. And ultimately, that comes down to money. How is it going to address the bottom line? Brand is an investment. You have to go put forth the case, bring the data, tell the story about how that asthma device is going to change the world, right? If you want investment. Top of that, learn the industry, not just business in general, learn the industry. Rory talks about this. He talks about talking to airlines. He made sure before he went and talked to a board to present, he understood the way they talked about products, the way they talked about services, the way they talked about each airline talks about their customers. They had a word for it, right? He learned that as well. That way you get, the acronyms and the jargon, like you feel like you're part of the tribe when you come in and start asking for money, because that's really what it comes down to, honestly. If you want to build a brand, you need money. But also, like, most likely in your career, you're going to work with different types of brands or different industries. In my case, I've worked with B2B, B2C, B2B2C, all at the same time. I cannot take what I learned about breakfast cereals or protein supplements into the boardroom of a multi-billion-dollar B2B construction materials company. They will roll their eyes. They do not care. They want to know, do you feel my pain? I got a headache. Do you have the Tylenol that's going to help me with my headache? And so you have to be able to understand the industry and make sure you speak their terms. And then you tell them why they should care, right? You got to take your own medicine. Pay attention to the subject matter. Did you guys pay attention to segmentation? Tom, did you guys talk about segmentation?
We reviewed segmentation in the second class around Marketing 101, so everyone had a foundational knowledge. In my strategy class, it's a huge part of marketing strategy formation, but this is a branding class, so we just touched on it because to me, branding is a result of doing all that good marketing as you walk through marketing land.
Yeah, exactly. Jess, good question. Thank you. Tom just dropped a question in. Let's get that to the end. Make sure we come back around to her, please. So, if you think about segmentation and how you're going to talk to different segments of customers in different ways, again, speak to their pain points. This happens in your company too. It happens in your company. It happens to your clients' companies. Again, going back to if I'm going to go pitch the CFO, or if I'm going to go talk to the COO, or if I'm going to talk to the CRO because I think the sales team needs to behave differently or do something differently, I better be able to change my pitch to make them give a shit. That's really important, right? So you'll find yourself in your career not just making one pitch deck and done. You make one pitch deck, you sit back and you think like a marketer. Sorry, phone's ringing. Think like a marketer. How is this person going to receive my message? Do I need to shuffle my deck? Do I need to put the details in? Do I need to bring up? If you guys have put a proposal in front of a CEO or CFO, I don't care how many pages or how beautiful your book is, they're going to flip to the back to see how much it costs first. Use that lens to figure out how much they want to pay attention to things after that. Okay. So just make sure you understand who you're talking to and why they should care. And then I ask you to actually give a damn. Part of the golden thread through this entire presentation, especially from our friends, is don't settle for something that AI can replace you on. That's what happened at Microsoft, right? Those 30% of people they get rid of, they could easily replace them. Figure out how to do good work and survive the chance of being cut, right? There's increasing noise around this. And I promise you, in every boardroom, they're saying, how can we cut staff so that we can make more money? Be the person that cannot be cut, basically. Learn how to think, how to react, how to ask better questions, how to go beyond the growing lists of AI prompts and provide real value. Make thinking your favorite. Sometimes there might be a nuclear war, right? That could, be on the hinge of it. But sometimes it's just, should we increase the price of our breakfast cereal by 10 cents next month? Either way, right? Make thinking your favorite. Understand that's where your rewards are going to be. Because if everyone has access to the same tools and data, who wins? Right? Everybody here, you guys have access to the same AI, the same internet, the same information. You can Google the same prompts as me. But how you take that information, tap into emotions, even in B2B, emotions are important, and use that data is important. What you do with it matters. The best stories are always going to win. Jess, that's part of it too. Stories. You can use data to understand how to tell that story. And just remember that people are also data. It's not just quant. It's not just modeling. Mark Ritson talks about going to talk to founders of important companies, right? Like when he worked for some of the French companies like LVMH, like those founders are data in themselves. That's the part that AI can't replace. Not yet. So I want to come back around to one of my favorite quotes that I love to hate. I'm sure everyone's seen this quote. If I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Now, the startup and tech community are going to tell you not to listen to customers. That's how they read that. I know because I've worked with thousands of technologists around the world. That's also why 90% of startups fail, because they're not actually talking to people, right? So he may not have actually said this, by the way. It's important to talk about that, right? But it's important to actually take the horses part off, because what people would have said was, I'd like to go faster. They may have said, can I have a faster horse? We know there's limitation there, but a good marketer is going to hear, oh, well, how do I go faster than a horse? How do I go faster than the limitation of a horse's speed? There's the product opportunity. It doesn't mean you ignore what the customer said. It means you lean into it. So cars, great. We all have cars now, right? Well, most of us have cars probably. Did horses completely go away? No, just changed, right? I don't bet on horses, but I've had 2 clients in the horse feed space for some reason. Another day, another time, we'll talk about that. But it's important to point out that the new technology from the second industrial revolution changed transportation. Horses didn't go away. We changed how we used horses. Now they're used for sport and leisure. But they were once the primary source of transportation. And we've actually held on to something from that era. It's called horsepower, right? That's how we measure, the power of a car, horsepower. Even these new EVs. I don't know if you guys, Tom, if you guys talked about Jaguar at all. Tom, are you froze? I think Tom's frozen. Tom doesn't sit still. He must be frozen. So yeah, anyway, horses haven't been used for transportation for over 100 years, right? Not daily transportation, but you know what did disappear during that time completely off the streets? Let's talk about the great horse manure crisis of 1894. I'm not kidding. In 1894, New York was home to over 150,000 horses. Each of those horses produced 15 to 30 pounds of manure every day. That shit stacked up. And I mean that literally, right? That resulted in more than 3 million pounds of horse manure. He's calling me. Do I need to let him in? Hey, oh, yep, I got to let him in. No, wait. What's going on? Forgive me, guys. Hang on just a second. Hey. No way. No. So his power went out. So Tom's tapped out. So it's just us. Oh, you are getting back in. Okay. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Okay. You are getting in now? Okay. Tom, are you with us? Is he with us? You guys see him? Excuse me. I do want to hold for him and text him real quick. This is a first. I haven't had this happen before in a presentation. You know what? Here, I'm going to stop share for a second because I might have to actually admit him. Hang on just a second. No, but I've got two other people. That's so funny. By the way, if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat and we'll come back around to them afterwards once we get Tom back in. He hasn't seen the horseshit thing, by the way, so I want to make sure I share that with him. Tell them to hold on. They're holding. So let's go ahead and proceed, and then we'll get into questions and give him a chance to click in, okay? His internet has to catch up. Okay, can you guys see the single slide? Yeah, okay, good, great, thanks. So anyway, long story short, they removed 3 million pounds of horse manure, not to mention the 40,000 gallons of horse urine every day on the streets. Now, that's where entrepreneurs came in, right? That's where some hustle bros had the opportunity to come clean up the shit, right? Thousands of people in New York City alone work daily to remove those mountains of horse shit, 500 tons a day of horse shit. obviously this helped travel, helped keep the streets clean. It actually helped disease was a big deal in New York at the time. But the sheer amount of horses in the city just it seemed like a safe job. People thought that was going to be around, right? New York was growing, more horses every week, more shit to shovel. Well, in the age, there he is.
Yeah, I got back.
You
Sorry, I'm now on my iPad.
Good. So, along with along with the sheer amount of horses in the city, this seemed like a safe job, right? Tom, I don't know if you heard the stat: 500 tons of horse shit, 40,000 gallons.
I remember the story. Yep, I remember the story.
So, quick story. I'm sure some people live in the city or have been to large cities. Do street sweepers still exist?
The trucks come by. Yep.
The trucks come by. So the job still exists, but tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people, went out of work the moment cars came around, right? So it just wasn't the same volume as when cars are around. So it's a funny story, but the age of technology, make sure you're providing value beyond the obvious. There's a lot of people, going back to what our friend said about doing average work, there's a lot of people just shoveling shit and staying safe. I don't want you to do that. I want you to do great work, learn how to think, because if you settle for average and choose to shovel shit, you could possibly be forgotten. And that's it. We could talk about some questions now. By the way, I disagree with Graham. I think LinkedIn's a wonderful place. I hope you'll come and join me there, engage in some conversations.
All right.
We'll tell you who to avoid too.
Now, I want to be able to. I want to do my favorite thumbs up shot at the end. So I'm going to try to get on now get off this iPad. All right, just hang in 1 second. All right, let me try. Let me try this. I feel bad about what happened.
So Jess, I'll jump in and address your question.
Take the questions. Yeah. Take the questions. Yeah. My laptop. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get on. So, if you'll just take it from here and answer any questions. And this just didn't. So I got a problem here. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'll do. I'll get your screenshot too if everyone's up for it.
Yeah, please do. Get the thumbs up for me.
Connor, you're right beside.
Okay, there.
Unfortunately, yeah, my computer doesn't have a webcam and I can't get to the Zoom thing on my phone.
That's
so
okay. No, sir. Don't worry about it. All right. So, Jess, it's all the information, right? If we just based everything on data, there's an opportunity to make the same decisions as everyone else. I think that's the message I want to leave you with. I'm looking for Jess and I don't see her, so I hope she's still here. But you want a mix of both. I actually told a client last week, he made a comment to me that if something he felt really good about and he was scared to make the decision. And he said that, I've had gut decisions get in my way before and cause trouble. So he's waiting on the data. And I said, well, you have a $20 million company for a reason. It's because you went with your gut when other people wouldn't have done what you did. Like there's a reason you did what, made those decisions. You take the data and you weigh the pros and cons, and then you still have to make a human decision. Do not farm out that decision. That's why I shared the nuclear warhead story, right? We still have to make human decisions that impact human lives. Does that help?
Yeah, that was good.
Well, I can't tell if I put people to sleep or if they're just shy or it's too early.
Very, this is typical, Philip. Just so you know, that's what your chat box is the best we got. So another question. I think just put another question in the chat box. Can you read that?
Yep. So Jess is my hero. With Henry Ford's quote, why should we not listen to consumers if we're providing solutions to their problems? So consumers, going back to the same quote, right? They can't tell you what they do or they're not going to do what they say and do, et cetera, et cetera. It's listen to them so you can peel apart the real problem, if that makes sense, right? That's why I like the Ford quote so much. Let me see if I can think of another example. So another client, then frankly, just supplements, protein powders and things like that. And they hadn't talked to customers in 10 years. 10-year-old company hadn't actually talked to customers, global company. The problem is during the pandemic, all the influencers they had been hiring to push their product on TikTok and Instagram, et cetera, Meta, a lot of those really influential people realized, wait, I can manufacture my own protein powder and sell it myself. And so I promise you, once you're successful, you're going to have competition. Over the last 3 to 4 years, they've just watched their sales go down and down and down, even though it's a superior product, even though it's priced competitively, all those things. By the way, they're not on retail shelves, which is another conversation for us to have one day, a whole class on placement. But they hadn't talked to customers. So one of the first things I did with them was set up Zoom calls just like this in several countries, and gave people a spiff, a nice little gift to show up. And we talked to people who've been buying the product for over 3 or 5 years. These are people who knew the brand better than we did. And they started asking for things, which was kind of sweet, right? Oh, can we have this? I want this product, do this. And just, this is a little stretch from what you're asking, but they were asking for things that didn't make sense for our company. That there's some brand elasticity there that just wasn't going to connect with the core of our offering, that we politely told them it was a good idea. We'll never in a million years make it, because that's not a business choice we're going to make. Now, doesn't mean we can't take a step back as a smart marketer and go, we don't want to invest in manufacturing that. We don't want to label that. We don't want to spread our budget thin to go promote that. But I know of a brand who's probably doing 10 to 20 million a year who doesn't compete in our space. They make that product they're asking for. Let's go talk to them and see if their brand is at the same standard we are as far as quality materials. And then we'll collaborate and we'll share customers. We will drive customers to them. They will drive customers to us. We'll let it run its course. In a year, we'll do something different. I'm sure you guys see that all the time, right? But that's an opportunity to, if you listen to your customers, you might be able to uncover some pain points that could make a huge difference in your business beyond what the data can tell you, because data is only pulled from something that already exists. Jess, does that help?
That was good.
I'll keep talking. I know you guys just want to get off.
Yes, you just wrote thank you. Yes, yes, thank you. Connor's asking, how do you go about finding the right angle? Read this. I can't read the rest of it.
Yeah, I got it. How do you go about finding the right angle, telling the right story so that people understand, like the asthma device? Think about like the segmentation, like why would they care, right? So if I were trying to get a campaign together and try to get physicians, clinicians, depending on what country you're in, to sell the device or recommend the device, that's a different message to that clinician, right? If I'm going to try to get moms to buy this device, subscribe to the software, and throw it in their purse and keep it there, that's a different message. I'm talking about their kid. To the doctor, I'm talking about less people showing up who don't need to be here and clogging up your waiting room, right? You can give them a better chance to manage their asthma before they show up. For the investors, do you know how many people in the world have asthma? And I want to sell them a $500 device and a $30 a month subscription, and you get to be in the ground floor. It's a very different message for those different groups. So Connor, I think that part's really important. There's a reason we segment for customers. By the way, love Byron Sharp. He tells you not to segment. That's the gray area I'm telling you about. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. You're selling Kit Kats. I don't know if Kit Kat needs a segment. There's a mass product. But I know if I'm trying to sell to doctors, moms, and investors, that's 3 completely different messages. And by the way, if you guys, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
I was gonna say another question just popped in the box. Let's make that the last one, because we've been on here an hour. That's a good amount of time. This has been an outstanding thing. So let's make this the last question after you're done this one here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Connor, I want to throw one more thing at you. If you guys are not comfortable with sculpting a story, there are frameworks where you can get started, and eventually you'll feel comfortable enough making your own. Does everyone know the hero's journey? Yeah. That's a good one. On our website at Common Giant, we have something called Why Should You Care, or Why Should They Care? It's literally a book on presenting. It's free. It's not, I don't even think it's gate kept. You can go to commongiant.com, go to the learning material and just download that ebook. It's a little dense, probably needs to be cut in half, but there's literally a story framework in there called the roller coaster ride. And it's exactly what I use today. Anyway, so yeah, there's a way to get started. So Jacob, thank you. As we enter the world of AI, as brand managers, what is the possible way to master AI? First of all, anyone tells you they're mastering AI, they're shoveling the horse shit from the streets in New York. So there's a lot of people who are much better than other people. But if you just look at the sheer amount of new products being announced every day, like it's going to be something we're learning. There are going to be people who are much better and going to be experts. I'm just wary of the word master or guru or anything like that. I think those are usually labels we give ourselves to sell. So Jacob, I think it's being curious, and then also don't worry about short-term thinking. Like if you're worried about trying to get like your next thing done next week, that's great. What's going to help you 2 years from now if you really want to master something? And that's why I want to take you back to the basics. What AI is going to help you parse the data? What AI is going to help you build some models? What AI is going to help you go scrape social media comments from a competitor and then feed you a synopsis? Because you can figure out where your competitors are falling down. Like there's some really good tools out there. And there's a woman by the name of Zoe. What is Zoe? Do you know Zoe?
Scanman. Zoe
Yeah,
Scanman.
yeah. Honestly, she's about the closest thing I've seen to someone who's blown my mind with AI. And she has a free, if you haven't seen this, Tom, I'll make sure you get the link to share with the class. She has a free Canva out there to see all the tools she uses. And she's building her own synthetic data and asking, she uses about 8 different types of AI to replace like going and being around stuff. It does not replace her sitting in a mall and watching people shop. She's open about that, right? But she can take the information, go feed it to the AI and start actually making some decisions. Do we lose you again, Tom? Let me text him again. I think we may have lost him again, guys. He just lost power again. Please, will you guys let him get back in to get his thumbs up photo? I mean so much to him. I would love it too, obviously. Please close this and apologize. Okay, well, his photo is on mine, so I'm going to Photoshop a thumbs in for him, or thumbs up for him. All right. So before I let you guys go, do you guys have any other questions? And if you don't, or if you're shy, or if you think of something afterwards, I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn or Twitter. Or you can email me. It's also easy to find, Phillip at philipoakley.com, 2 L's non-biblical. Anything else? Okay, let's get that. Thank you, Jeff. Let's get that thumbs up. See if I can get more people on the screen. Bear with me just a second. All right, you guys about ready? Act like you mean it. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to see you all. Take care.